Hello, third grade. This video is for Beautiful Feet, Part 2, May 7th. At this time, I'd like you to go ahead and pause your video so that you can read these 4 sentences for our vocabulary words. All right, good job reading those sentences. I hope that you use the other words in the sentences to help you figure out what the red words are. That's called using context clues. Repeat the vocabulary words after me, please. Festivities, marvel, tidings, remembrance. All right, number 1. Ming Chu and her family were welcomed, and the wedding festivities began. You should have been picturing in your head that Ming Chu and her family arrived at the wedding. You're welcomed when you arrive somewhere, and that's when the festivities began. So I'm thinking that festivities must have to do with the celebration. Didn't begin until they showed up. Number 2, the women come to marvel at your feet because they think small feet are so beautiful. So if there's a bunch of women around Ming Chu, that's who this is about, and they believe in all their beings that the most beautiful feet in the world are the smallest. And here you have a woman with the smallest feet. They all want to come and stare and look. And so I'm thinking marvel must mean to look at something with great astonishment. Number 3, tidings. The shepherds brought tidings of comfort and joy. Hopefully, this sentence made you think about the shepherds who went off and told everybody about the fact that they had just seen the Messiah as a baby born in a manger. And so the shepherds brought tidings of comfort and joy. Tidings must have something to do with giving some news or giving some information, important information. Number 4, remembrance. Your tree ring Christmas ornament is a gift of remembrance. You had, or have, hopefully you still have, your Christmas ornament that I gave to you this year. It's made your picture on a tree ring. So you will always have that as a gift of remembrance. Look at that base word in remembrance. You should be thinking remember. Yes, so a gift of remembrance is something that helps you remember. So every year when you look at that ornament, I hope that you'll think about science class and what you learned about the tree ring, and looking at yourself, just remembering that that's you in 3rd grade, and you'll have that for years to come. All right, let's go ahead and open up to page 367. Before we start reading, I want you to think about the setting of this story. Where does this story take place? Hopefully my shirt is helping you remember that this story takes place in China. What continent is my head covering right now? Africa, right, I'm blocking Africa. Now, where is my head? South America. Where does our story take place? China. And what continent is China on? Asia, that's right. I am still thinking about Gladys Aylward and her railroad trip that she took. Where did Gladys Aylward start her trip? In England, way up there above Spain, England, which is in Europe. And she traveled by train all the way over there to China. But we are not talking about Gladys Aylward. We're talking about beautiful feet. Is this story a true story? Yes, it is. On page 360, you read there that this is a true story that was retold by the author of this story so that you and I could read it today. A real story in China. What else do you know about this setting? What are the surroundings? Are they in a big city in China? No, they are in the mountains. We've already talked about some mountain trails. And so they're in the mountains of China. And I know that because we have been talking about bound feet and that Ming Chu's feet are bound and that women find it very beautiful. I know that this had to take place sometime in the early 1900s, perhaps, late 1800s, early 1900s, sometime in the 1900s. And I know that because bound feet were banned in 1912, but it still took years for people to stop doing it. After all, Gladys Aylward was there in the 1930s. And so that's 20 years after it became outlawed. for women to do that to their children's feet. So while we read, you're going to continue to ask this question, who has beautiful feet? And so far in the story, who has beautiful feet? Ming Chu. The Chinese culture says that her feet are beautiful. The women there, they believe that small feet were the most beautiful feet. Very good. Now, how do you think Ming Chu's feeling about having bound feet? Remember that these feet right here, these are the feet of women, not little girls. They're very tiny. And the only reason why they're so tiny is because when they were babies, their moms started to bind their feet up so that as their feet grew, they didn't grow all big like this, like yours and mine. They grew all scrunched up and wrapped around. So if you were going to walk on these feet, you wouldn't be walking on these smooth pads like your feet. You'd be walking on your toes that are scrunched up underneath. So how do you think that Ming Chu feels about having bound feet? What do you think? Well, she might actually feel excited because she gets a lot of attention because she has the most beautiful feet. And so a lot of women must praise her and think that she's beautiful. Don't you feel happy when somebody tells you that you're beautiful or you're handsome, boys? Right? But is there anything that would make her feel bad about having bound feet? Do you remember? Right. She would feel, perhaps she would have felt bad because she couldn't run around like that other girl who was playing ball and was able to run and chase the ball. How did Ming Chu have to walk? Slowly and carefully. And so let's take a look at your Venn diagram. What do you already have written on there? For Ming Chu, we should already have on there that she has small feet and that she has to walk slowly and carefully, right? You might also have right on there that she has beautiful feet. But I want to remind you to write in pencil, because if we get to the point in the story where we discover that Ming Chu has the same thing, where would we have to write that? We'd have to move it here to the middle. Because in the middle of your Venn diagram, and if you look back in your school binder, you'll find our story or our song about Venn diagrams that will help you remember that in the middle is where we write how they're the same, how they're alike, what they both have in common. Comparing is what's the same, how they're both. But then contrasting on the outside, on the outer parts, is where you put how they are different. Only what Ming Chu has goes in the blue, and only what Ming Chu's husband has would go in the yellow. All right. Oh, one more thing before we get started. Do you know any promises that God has for us in the Bible? Well, there is one promise in the Bible in Romans 8:28. God promises us that he will work out all things for our good, for those who love him and are called to his purpose. It doesn't mean that we're all going to be rich and we're all going to be happy all the time. What it means is that the things that come into our lives, God is promising that he'll work them out for our good, especially when we think about things that might be happening that are not good, or things that we feel bad about. In some kind of way, I believe in God's promise that he will work it out for some kind of good. And we're going to look at that in the story. Now, why am I bringing up the Bible? What does the Bible have to do with this story? What have you learned so far? Right, Ming Chu, it said she lived in a mission, which is where missionaries work. And we also learned that this missionary taught Ming Chu and Ming Chu's husband the gospel. So Ming Chu believes in Jesus Christ, and so does her future husband. All right, so today, as you read, you're going to keep thinking and asking yourself, who has beautiful feet? And I have another thing for you to think. As you read, I want you to find out, what do Ming Chu and her husband do after they get married? You're about to read about them getting married. What are they going to do after they get married? You can pause the video while you read pages 367 to 369. All right, good job, very good. Good job reading. So what did you find out about who has beautiful feet? And did you find out what Ming Chu and her husband do after they get married? Let's look at page 367. What did they prepare to do after their wedding? Remember, don't just guess. You can look right at the text and find out. If there were illustrations, they could help you as well. But on 367, we only have text, only the words. If you look right at the first paragraph, it says Ming Chu and her new husband prepared for their first trip together into the mountains of China. Into the mountains of China, something like this, taking a trip. Now, why did Ming Chu and her husband travel from village to village? What did the author say they're doing as they go from village to village? That's right, they're carrying the gospel to the Chinese. They are Chinese, and they're carrying the gospel to other people in China who don't know Jesus yet and who do not believe in Jesus yet. And what is Ming Chu's husband going to do? He's going to preach the gospel. I'm thinking you could write that down where? In your Venn diagram, that Ming Chu's husband preaches the gospel. What about Ming Chu? What is she doing in the village? She's teaching the Bible to women. So you could pause the video and write those things in there, right? Now, do know that Ming Chu is obeying a command from God. Do you know that? All Christians, we are all commanded, something that Jesus said right before he ascended up into heaven, after he was raised from the grave, 3 days after he was buried, raised from the grave. Jesus walked around on this earth for 40 days until one day God took him up into the clouds, up into heaven. But before he did that, if you looked in Matthew, in the book of Matthew, you will find his command is for us to teach the Bible to all. And Ming Chu is preaching the gospel, is obeying God's command. Now, when they get to the villages there on 367 still, what happens to many of the women? Or no, I'll say this. The women come to listen to Ming Chu read the Bible. Why do they come and listen to her? You know what actually draws them there? Her feet. They are marveling at her feet. Her feet are the smallest, and they think that's the most beautiful. It's also a sign of wealth, great beauty. And so that's why they showed up, to listen to the gospel. Not just to listen to the gospel, they showed up to look at her feet. Do you know that it's a great thing for us to use what God has given us to help pull people in to hear the gospel? We do that in our country all the time. There are some churches in Valdosta who have, I'm thinking of one, Valdosta Days, they have free food, funnel cake, candy, games to play, big slides to go down, a helicopter, the med rescue helicopter to come in, fire engines, all of these things for you to go and do that pull you in. I want some funnel cake. I want to play some games, but they really want to share the gospel with you. And so Ming Chu didn't know this, but God was using her feet to get women to come and hear the gospel. And guess what? When women hear the gospel, God can open their hearts for them to believe in him. All right, let's look at page 368. On page 368, let's think about how Ming Chu and her husband travel. As they're traveling through these mountain trails, how are they traveling? Well, Ming Chu, she has to ride in what? A sedan chair. Here's the difference for our Venn diagrams. How does Ming Chu travel? In a sedan chair. And why is she traveling in the sedan chair? That's right, because her feet are bound, and it is very painful for her to walk on them. And so she rides in the sedan chair, and her husband walks. So go ahead and write those differences in your Venn diagrams. Ming Chu's husband, he walks. He travels by walking. And Ming Chu, she travels by sedan chair. You could pause the video and take time to write that in there. So on page 368, one day, Ming Chu's reading her Bible. This is making me think of Carrie from Captive Treasure. She was younger than Ming Chu when she discovered that she needed to read God's word for herself because she knew that she needed it and that God's word would bring her peace and wisdom. I hope that you would be reading your Bible all by yourself at this point in your life as well. I can remember reading the Bible for myself when I was 9 years old. So Ming Chu's reading the Bible, and she comes across the book of Romans, chapter 10, verse 15. It says, "And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of these who preach the good news." It says beautiful feet. She is amazed that it's talking about beautiful feet. She's thinking about how everybody says her feet are beautiful. But now she reads about what God says, that God says that anybody who preaches the gospel has beautiful feet. So what does that mean? Who has beautiful feet? Ming Chu has beautiful feet. Ming Chu's husband has beautiful feet. So I hope you have your pencil ready to erase beautiful feet from Ming Chu's blue part and put it right in the middle, because they both have beautiful feet according to God. And so how amazing. On page 368, Ming Chu is sharing some kind of sad feelings that she had about her feet. Why does she wish that her feet had never been bound? Why? Right, because when she rides in the sedan chair, she feels bad. What does she want to do instead of riding in the sedan chair? Right, she wants to be walking. She wants to be walking alongside her husband. It's making her feel sad. She wants to be able to run with the children. All right, let's look at page 369. How do you think that Ming Chu's husband feels when he hears that Ming Chu thinks his feet are beautiful? The author gives us a clue. Look at page 369. And 368, Ming Chu had said, "No," Ming Chu said, "you have beautiful feet." At the top of 369, what was Ming Chu's response? "Me!" Exclamatory sentence. That is showing surprise and shock. He's shocked that she would say such a thing. And why was she telling her husband that he has beautiful feet? Because she read it in the Bible. Because God said that he does. Wow. And then what does Ming Chu say about her own feet? What does she say about her own feet? Saying that her feet aren't beautiful because they're tiny. They're beautiful because she is also sharing the gospel. She is helping her husband preach in the villages, and she is teaching the women the gospel message as well. So she has beautiful feet because of that. And so in the middle, beautiful feet, and also they share the gospel. They both share the gospel. Ming Chu preaches, he's a preacher. That's Ming Chu's husband preaches the gospel. Ming Chu teaches the Bible to women, but in the middle, they are both taking the gospel, or both teaching the gospel. Very good. Okay, so at this time, I want you to go ahead and read 370 and page 371. While you are reading, still ask yourself that question: who has beautiful feet? 370 and 371. All right, good job. Very good job reading. Now on page 370, what's the answer to that question? Who else does Ming Chu and her husband think have beautiful feet? Look at paragraph number 2. It says, "The missionary," replied her husband. "He brought the gospel to us." So all people who bring the gospel to other people, God says they have beautiful feet. Another question for you. How long is it before they see the missionary again? How long is it? Many years. Look at paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth indentation. It says, "But it was many years before they saw the missionary again." Many years. Why do Ming Chu and her husband go back to see the missionary? Well, they want to see him. They want to see him before he leaves again, because the missionary is ready to leave China and go back to what country? Back to the United States. He's a missionary from the United States. Very good. And what does Ming Chu find as she packs for the trip? What does she find? She finds her wedding shoes. Her wedding shoes. Her beautiful shoes that she had worn for her wedding. And what did these shoes remind her of as she's packing? She sees them and she's reminded of what God said about beautiful feet. How beautiful her feet looked in her wedding shoes. But she's reminded that God said that beautiful feet are really the feet that go and tell people the gospel message. What did Ming Chu, look at page 370 and 371, what did Ming Chu decided to do with her shoes? That's right. She gave the missionary her little shoes. Look at the last sentence there on 370. Ming Chu gave him the little shoes. What does Ming Chu tell the missionary when she explains what beautiful feet mean to her? Right, she tells them Romans 10:15. She tells him about the verse that she read in Romans. Now, why? Why does Ming Chu want her to give these shoes? Why does Ming Chu want to give these shoes to the missionary? Because then she wants him to give them to who? Who does she want him to give them to? She wants him to give them to a little girl in the United States. He's going back there after all. And so where does it say what she asked the missionary to do? On page 371. Will you find some little girl in America who loves the Lord and give her these shoes? That's what she wants. Perhaps my story will encourage her to carry the gospel to others as you have done. So number one, she wants them to be given to a girl who already loves the Lord, and that it will remind that little girl that she needs to go and tell people about Jesus Christ, the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. Wow. How would you feel if you were the one who was given these shoes from the missionary from China? That would be amazing. And just know, remember, this is a true story. You have just read a true story. And the message from that woman, Ming Chu, is now your message. If you love the Lord, I hope that you would go and you would tell other people about Jesus Christ. Your family who's there with you, your friends who come to visit you, those who you might play with outside. You go to dance, you go to horseback riding lessons, baseball, soccer, football. So many places that you can meet other people and ask them if they've heard about Jesus. You have your wordless book that you can use to show others and to tell them the simple message. It is so simple to tell somebody about Jesus Christ, but we have to know. We have to know our Bible, know what it says. And in our lesson tomorrow, I'm going to read the whole story again for you, and I'm going to go over the wordless book with you. Before we go off today, I have some last questions to ask you. So, who has beautiful feet? Ming Chu, Ming Chu's husband, the missionary. Very good. In what ways are the feet beautiful? Well, Ming Chu's feet are beautiful for more than one reason. In her culture, it's because she has the smallest feet. That's why they're beautiful. And for all three of them, Ming Chu's husband, and the missionary, it's because God says that those who walk and tell people about Jesus Christ have beautiful feet. Do you have beautiful feet? You know what? You shared that whole gospel message with friends and family at our Chinese banquet in honor of Gladys Aylward. And what does Ming Chu learn from Romans 10:15? What did she learn? She learned that truly beautiful feet are those who take the gospel to others. Right. Good job. Good job. You could go and find all the sentences for the vocabulary words if you would want to do that in this story. At this time, you're going to answer those questions that are on your worksheet. It is an assessment worksheet. So make sure you use your book and you find the evidence for your answers in the text and in the illustration. Great job, third grade. I'm excited to also see you tomorrow for our reading lesson. Have a great day. I love you and I miss you.